This is Jeep Wrangler JL and I'm here to show you why you're dreaming of this car but you're never going to buy one.
For those of you who, like me, are not part of the Jeep cult, let me explain that the Wrangler is the grandson of the World War II Willys Jeep, also known as Ford something or the other. During the war, the car was called Jeep, either from the letters GP, General Purpose Vehicle, or from the cartoon character Eugene the Jeep. After the war, Willys registered the Jeep trademark, and then Jeep CJ, as in civilian Jeep, was offered to the public. The CJ was produced by 3 companies until the late 1980s, when the brand was taken over by Chrysler. The CJ was then replaced by the controversial YJ with rectangular headlights. Jeep aficionados were outraged at the tampering with the brand's iconic grille with 7 slots and obligatory round headlights. The round headlights returned 10 years later with the TJ. The next generation was produced by Daimler Chrysler and was called the JK, and now we have the JL under the wings of Fiat.
As you can probably imagine, the Wrangler made it up the sandy hill without any problems, even with some roots sticking out of the ground. These things just don't stop it. By the way, this is the mid-range Sahara model, so it doesn't have the front and rear locking diffs or disconnecting sway bar. That's reserved for the range-topping Rubicon, which also has a different low-range ratio. But even with the Sahara, with just 4-wheel drive in low range, it gets over most obstacles, which would have stopped me in lesser off-road vehicles.
I don't have a standardized off-road obstacle course, but I can explain what I'm feeling. In most modern off-road cars, you can feel the electronics do the work, and in most cases they will help an inexperienced driver to get across the rough stuff and make it to safety. For example, this incline was too steep for the Range Rover Velar because of insufficient approach angle. It also bottomed out at the top of less steep inclines because of insufficient breakover angle. Meanwhile here, with enough momentum, I could have driven up in 2-wheel drive. However, because I stopped, I had to engage 4-wheel drive.
In the Wrangler, you don't feel any systems intervening because there really aren't any. It's a simple drivetrain, and if you want to make it up a dune, you just have to step on it and hope for the best. And not every time you will succeed. Sometimes you'll have to back out and try again, a different angle or a different speed. But generally speaking, I feel the Wrangler is waiting for my input rather than input from a computer. Here I should say I'm no off-road expert and I'm not planning to plow through thigh-deep water. The car's wading depth is about 76 centimeters, which is as high as my thighs. Off-roading is a bit different depending on where you live. For example, in Poland, most off-roading involves mud. In the Middle East, you go dune bashing, and in the States, rock crawling seems to be the thing. Unless you have a cousin whose name is Billy Bob and he has a digger and y'all dig a ditch in the backyard of your home and you fill it with water and invite everyone in the county to drive their pickup trucks through it. If that's your thing, you might be a redneck. Anyway, back to the Wrangler. If I really applied myself, I'd probably get it stuck somewhere, but I just couldn't find anything sufficiently challenging around my backyard, and no one in my family owns a digger. If you live somewhere remote, the Wrangler should be at the top of your list, along with the Defender, Land Cruiser, those sorts of cars.
If you live somewhere closer to civilization, but you like to do some recreational off-roading, and the Wrangler is your third or fourth car, then yes, it's a good choice. However, if you live in the city and you think owning a legendary off-roader will help you score some chicks, you're wrong.
Now, before the good people who attend Moab Easter Safari tell me to go and hit myself on the head with a shovel for daring to criticize the Wrangler, just let me say that I know what this car is for and that I'm dreaming of owning one since I was a kid. I simply cannot afford an expensive toy. And now I'll explain why I think this car is not for everybody. Handling. Jeep made great advancements in terms of ride comfort and handling, but the Wrangler is still an off-road vehicle. It has the off-roady feeling, it has the off-roady steering ratio. In order to make a 90 degrees turn, you have to turn the wheel full 360 degrees. In the straight line, you can move the wheel left and right and nothing happens. And in the bends, the car rolls, so better slow down. These are not criticisms, but observations about the Wrangler. The Wrangler is a great car off the beaten path. Tarmac is just to get to the next rough patch, not the other way around. Here it's worth mentioning the engine lineup. In Europe, we get the 2-liter 270 horsepower petrol motor or a 2.2-liter 200 horsepower diesel. I'm more interested in the petrol, but the diesel was the only one available on the press fleet, so here we are.
Besides lazy steering, which discourages from fast driving, the Wrangler is surprisingly brisk. Should you dare to exceed 100 km per hour, it happens in a reasonable 9 seconds, slightly longer for the Rubicon, which is more off-road oriented. Declared fuel economy is 7.6 liters per 100 km combined, that's diesel, which is achievable because you drive slow, and nobody's going to say a word because you are rich and eccentric enough to buy a Wrangler in Europe.
Comfort. For a Wrangler, this is next level. The biggest nuisance is wind noise around the antenna, which starts around 65 km per hour and then just goes on. But compared to the JK, this is a much better package. It does shake a lot on bumps, but that's what the grab handles are for here in the front. In the back, there aren't any, just the cage, but we'll get back to that in a minute. Visibility is okay. Driving position is a bit awkward as I can't find a place for my left foot. A dead pedal would be nice. Google a dead pedal and one of the first pictures that comes up is a aftermarket or custom-made dead pedal in the Wrangler JK. By the way, there isn't much more space to slide back, so if you're 190 centimeters or taller, you may want to take this for a longer test drive before you buy.
From generation to generation, Jeep Wrangler changes very little so as not to upset the brand fans. It's a bit like with the Mini. You can spot it from a mile away, that's why there is even no Jeep logo on the bonnet. Jeep thinks the grille is enough for everyone to know what they're dealing with. Some of the changes in the JL are to do with safety regulations. For example, taillights protrude for the blind spot monitoring sensors to see beyond the flared fenders. There is now a backup camera on the spare wheel and the third brake light is adjustable to fit with larger tires. There are a couple of fake-looking air vents on the bonnet, but they do have some cooling function actually. And watching the stock footage, I noticed they are not present on all models. I suspect they appear on versions with turbo engines.
The Wrangler cockpit is very well and logically laid out. There are a couple of big cup holders. Americans really know how to do their cup holders. There are door pockets, or rather nets, where you can stick a bottle like this or whatever easily. Under the armrest there is double storage, pretty deep, with one USB port down there. There is also a small, but still there is one, a glove box and a place to put something up here on top of the dashboard, maybe your sunglasses or something. I've seen family cars which are not quite as well laid out.
Jeep also features a USB-C and a USB-A port. There is Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Factory sat-nav is rubbish. The seats and the steering wheel are heated. It may be an option, which also requires leather upholstery, but it's well worth it in colder parts of Europe.
Access to the rear is from both sides. As long as the driver and the passenger aren't too tall, there is decent amount of legroom and headroom. There is a place for 2 people in the 2-door car. There are 2 cup holders, a 220-volt socket, but there are no grab handles when the car is going over rougher terrain, just a cage which is always going to be dusty. What's the deal with the cage anyway? Why isn't it a part of the roof? Because the Jeep is actually an open-top car with a folding soft top or a removable hard top. Depending on the trim and possibly the market as well, soft top or hard top is standard, and you can get the other one as an option for a couple of €1,000. And it turns out removing the roof isn't as hard as you may think.
In the glove box, you'll find a simple set of tools, everything you need to remove various parts of the roof, doors, etc. In case of the roof, you first need to remove the front 2 panels. There is a bag for them, but I didn't get one with the car. Anyway, they take up too much space in the boot. Then there are a couple of screws above the passengers' heads and 3 screws on each side of the rear windows. Don't worry about the screws because there is a place for them in the boot. Since the tailgate is already open, just lift the window, disconnect the wiring and the rear window washer hose, and with the second person's help, you can remove the top. And now the doors. Windows down, then remove the covers, disconnect the wiring and this strap, which is mostly for show, as the doorstop is the next thing you'll have to unscrew. Also unscrew the door hinges and the doors can be removed. By the way, all this took about 15 minutes. Perhaps once you've done it a few times, you can get it down to 30.
Folding the windscreen should be just as easy. There are 4 bolts here which you just have to unscrew. You have to unscrew the wipers and just fold the windshield, or you can unscrew it completely. However, I encountered a problem with these windshield wipers. There is a bigger key needed to open it, and I sort of kind of broke it because nobody put graphite on these nuts, and that's what happened. Also, great American engineering when it comes to these little toolkits that you get with your Jeep. One of these, better bring your own tools. So anyway, once I have this whole thing disassembled, I can't unfortunately drive off like this because first of all I can't leave the roof behind, and secondly, in order for the car to be road legal, at least here in Poland, I need at least 2 mirrors. So one in the middle and one on the driver's side. I suppose I could get away with those kind of caravan accessory mirrors, but I don't have any with me, so I'll just drive around here on this field because, come on, this is why I removed all of this. I want to feel how it is. Come on. Okay, so the weather can be unpredictable, and that's not a problem. It started raining, well, pouring actually, when I wanted to do the drone shots of me driving with the roof down. That's fine. So we didn't get to record, we got wet, that's also okay, but this roof is a 2-person job to remove, and preferably a 3-person job or a lift job to actually put back on. So it's 7:24 a.m. and we're thinking, where can we pull a favor, wake someone up and ask them to come here and help us reinstall this thing. Fingers crossed. No, that's a Polish way, holding thumbs, fingers crossed. Cavalry has arrived in the form of my friend Martin, or Marcin, who you must, will follow on Instagram. His handle is down here, it's at BoatTrick. So anyway, whenever you are in deep woods, Marcin is the guy to call. So thanks a lot for that. Anyway, the roof itself isn't particularly heavy. It weighs about 50 kilograms, but it's about how you have to balance it. So one person can grab it like by the middle over there and it's okay, but you need two people to grab it from two sides on the back side. Possibly if you could remove the back window it would be easier, but without that it is pretty heavy and pretty difficult to maneuver. So anyway, we got it in and now we're going to film the rest of this review, which is pretty much the start of this review, which you've already seen, but you don't care about that. Anyway, see you later.
Generally speaking, you need a large house with a large garage to store the roof. Otherwise, even during the summer, using a Wrangler without the roof could be complicated. One of the reasons why I didn't film the entire episode without the roof is because the weather was unpredictable the whole week. There are Moper accessory covers and you can get one of those bikini tents to protect you from the drizzle, but in Europe, especially in the cities, it's better to be able to close the car properly to protect it not just from the elements. And then there is the boot, 192 liters with the rear bench unfolded and about 600 liters with it folded. Watch out for the tailgate as there is a protruding bit, so larger items need to be stored in the middle. But I guess this is more than enough for two people to go camping, and if you want to play off-road with your entire family, then you get a 4-door unlimited model. Which brings us to the price. The cheapest two-door Wrangler starts at 47,000 euro, the extra pair of doors costs 3,000 euro, and that's for the Sport. The Sahara starts at 54,000 euro, and with options, this car is close to 60 grand. At the time of filming, we still don't know much about the new Land Rover Defender, so the Wrangler doesn't have a direct competitor yet. For 50,000+ euro, you could easily swing a Land Rover Discovery Sport or the Range Rover Evoque, which are more than capable off-road for an average driver, but at the same time they are much more usable in everyday life. Unless, of course, directions to your house include turn off the paved road.
I still love the Jeep Wrangler and I really regret that in my current situation this is just an expensive toy which I would not be able to justify. Perhaps this is going to be my fourth car. I just need to buy the second and the third and get a bigger garage. And what do you think about the new Jeep Wrangler? Is this your thing or would you rather get a more city-oriented SUV? Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe, rate and share and join me for new reviews every Friday. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one.